Recording is on.
So please don't turn off the recording because Jitsi allows that anybody can do that thing. Okay. So this, of course, one good thing it has happened at this point. So earlier one is a older module, this is a newer one. So maybe we can have two separate recordings. So it's about NATs, firewall, and HTTP proxy. So what is a firewall? Normally, for example, within IIT Kanpur, we are inside the network. This you can actually see the network. There is a host inside my lab or maybe on my home. There seems to be a problem with. So I think now you must be able to see the slides on WebEx also. WebEx may be having some problem. Seems. Okay. So.
Sir, I think my bandwidth is too much low.
So you can just move to Hangout or you go to Jitsi or go for Skype. Skype is a better option for you.
Okay.
Skype works even with a lower bandwidth. So best is that if you can move to Skype, Skype will survive almost everything. Okay. So coming back to the firewall. So this firewall is maintained for a protection. Now typically the way it happens is anything which is coming from the network goes to the network layer. Anything coming from the application layer also goes to the network layer. Or in this case of a firewall, everything will be coming only from network layer. So network layer from this side as well as network layer from this side. So all packets when they arrive, they will go into an engine, and before they are being forwarded any further, they are being passing through a set of rules. So these rules what actually decides whether you can set up a connection from inside to outside, from outside to inside, or only for certain IP addresses packets are permitted from inside to outside. Okay, so all these kind of rules can be put in a firewall. Now firewall is not netting. Remember, these are a different thing. It is governed by rules. Okay. Normally same router can work as a firewall as well as netting router both. It is possible. So the firewall rules typically will look something like this. It will say source IP address, the port. You can actually use wildcard entries here. So give a complete range. Okay, or you can give a subnet address also in this case. Destination IP address, port. So port also ranges can be given. The protocol. So whether it is for UDP, whether it's for TCP, actually you have to specify. In case of a TCP, there is a separate packet called SYN, sync packet. These are used for setting up the connection, initial handshakes. So normal data packets are normally permitted, but sync packets, if I block, you cannot set up a connection. So if I say all inside IP addresses, all outside IP addresses, all inside IP addresses, this is a wildcard here. Protocol say TCP and I say sync and packet is not allowed. It means nobody can set up a connection from outside to inside. While normal TCP frames should be able to pass through. Okay. So this is typically allowing TCP traffic, normal traffic, but not allowing the TCP connection setup. So sync is used for that purpose. You can actually see etc slash there is a IP tables and IP tables configuration you can check in a Linux machine for this. Normally in Windows also similar kind of tables are there, but they are being mostly managed graphically. So now, interestingly, UDP, there is no connection setup required. It's a datagram based system. It simply just passes through. And in TCP, just by blocking TCP sync, you can set up only from one side and you can block from the other side. Okay. Now, this is an example which has been given. So now how the net actually works, let's come to that. So net, in case of a firewall, there is no address being changed. So source address and destination address in a packet when it is passing through firewall remains same. Okay, but in a net, this does not happen. So your host, for example, you are inside IITK, you are using 172.26.82.7 as an IP address, wanting to go to some Google outside. So when you actually communicate, this net will essentially create a table entry, will change this private IP address and port number to public IP address, which is 202.141.40.215 is an example of a public IP address. And sometimes this can be very unique. So for example, we have been running Brahaspati's SVN net server. Of course, now it has been stopped because of the lockdown thing. So we actually were using internally an internal IP address, but from outside it is being accessible through a public IP address. And this is only because of netting. Okay, so for outside people, my domain name service will give this IP address. For the same name, from inside domain name server will give you this address. Okay, this address actually belongs to that only. Now, there is another thing which can be done. This is done now in IIT Kanpur also. Is that very few public uh, IP addresses are being allocated to IIT. We have only 255, 256 addresses available to us. Okay, we have only probably purchased 3 blocks of this kind, but there are almost 12 to 13,000 institute people. There are so many computers running inside. They are all accessing internet. So I don't have those many public IP addresses. And anything, any packet which has a private IP address and which goes into the internet is summarily rejected by any router, because private IPs are being repeatedly used at different places. They are being repeated. Okay. So there has something has to be done. So this is what actually has been done. That addresses are being mapped. Now for doing this mapping, which is shown here in this net, we require 6 entries which need to be maintained. So that there is a netting router will create an entry there, which will now maintain there is a source IP address, there is a source port. So the your internal private IP and private port, and there is a public side IP address and public side netted. I call it netted IP and netted port. And fifth entry and sixth entry are destination IP and destination port. This fifth and sixth entry need not be mandatorily maintained. When you don't use this thing, 5 and 6 are star star anything, then we call it a full cone net. Okay, so full cone net will look something like this. Your host from inside IITK may actually communicate through netting router to a server S. Now netting router will have an entry that host IP address port number, netted IP address port number. This mapping is there, but it does not know have any information about the server. So some other guy R will send a packet to it. When it comes, there is no way it can figure out whether it's coming from same source or not. So it will simply route this particular thing back here, because just by doing translation. So H communicated to S, but it actually now made the same IP address and port number available to some other servers. Now this is what is the full cone net. So this is, and if it is not at, there is no firewall here which says connection can be set up only from inside to outside, or if this is allowed both ways, then R can set up a connection to H. If it is a UDP transport, that particular option is not there, then R can always send UDP packets to H. So this is what we also call UDP hole punching actually. So I have created a hole through the firewall, netting firewall, and somebody from outside can come back to me. So now this would have been a vulnerability, but this is also a good thing if you are running a client inside which have to also act like a server. Okay. But if you want a precaution that only the people from only S should be able to communicate back to you, then you have to then put the restrictions in the net table. So that options also do exist. Okay. Yeah. So coming to the next thing, so H has to simply do one thing. It has to run a server on this host address and port, and it has to keep on sending the packets to some server outside periodically to maintain the netting table entry. That's the only thing which has to be done. So if this kind of thing is available, I think you can run a peer-to-peer client to which other people can communicate. It's far more easier. But there are two more nets which are available. One is we call restricted cone net. Okay. So this also, if somehow the communication can happen, the inside host can actually open channels for other node IDs from outside so that they can communicate to him. So any arbitrary guy cannot communicate. Only a channel has to be opened from inside. So in this case, netting table 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, fifth entry will also be used now. But sixth entry will be left, it is not used. So it's any actually now. So in this case, H is going to send a packet to S, perfect. But now this netting router entry will have S IP address also being entered. So R cannot send the packet back. So it has to send a packet to R. It can be to any port because port is a material here. Okay, to any port. Once it has been sent, R will be able to send the packet back to him. So this explicitly it can be opened. This is more secure. This is called restricted cone net. From SNR, any port actually can be used. It need not be the port to which host actually communicated. Okay. Now packets can be sent to the public IP address and port of the net and will reach to the host. Okay. Important thing that if H is not sending anything to R cannot send anything back. And of course, there is a fourth category which is a port restricted net. So in the table, sixth is also going to be maintained. So in the reverse direction, if 5 and 6 are matching, they are coming to 3, 4, it will be translated and moved to 1, 2. Okay. So H need to keep on sending packets to R1, R2, and S to a specific ports. Only from those ports it will be able to receive the packets. But it will require actually 3 entries to be created in the netting table. Okay. So when H has sent the packets to S, R1, R2 on the same port from which S, R1, and R2 are communicating, the communication is going to happen. There is also another variety called symmetric net. Now, in this case, if host communicate to S1, it will use a public IP address and a port number. If it wants to communicate to S2, same public IP address and port number will not be used. So the logic here is going to change. It will also now look into the source address, destination address and port, and source address and port. If all four are not same, they are different, it will use a different public address and port number pair. So P1, P2 are public address and port number pair actually. So they can only communicate only back to those only. This is, I think, most secure mechanism. Nobody will be able to do kind of a send incorrect packets or malicious packets to you. So this is the most secure mechanism, but of course bad for the peer-to-peer networks. So if you have a full core net, I think it's far superior. We will be able to operate a peer-to-peer system. But if nothing works, I think HTTP tunneling is always going to work. So in fact, when Skype actually came in the beginning, Skype actually had this HTTP tunneling built in. So even we were not having netting, we were not having direct outside connection. We were all going through HTTP proxy. We were able to do Skype-based communication. Of course, there are penalties on that. The quality would have been bad. Normally, for a real-time traffic, UDP is the best option. So I will talk about that. So HTTP tunneling in this proxy. Now, how does this thing actually operates? So HTTP has 3 modes. One is GET, the POST, and the CONNECT. So GET is basically only give a URL. Everything has to be embedded inside the URL. Okay. So once you have this GET thing goes, there is no payload which can be sent with the request. In the response, you can actually get the payload coming back, large data. So normally, the one of the good things common things which is done in HTTP tunneling is using POST. In fact, now even that is not done. We move to HTTP Connect if that is supported by your proxy. So in fact, there is priority which we handle. We normally first of all go for UDP kind of thing for media, because if there is a video stream coming, some packet is lost. Doing a retransmission, it may take time. It is going to be delayed. By the time that packet is of no value, you are playing some other video actually. So time sync is important. So UDP makes sense there. Even if packets are dropped, you don't bother about it. If you want resilience, you actually send two separate independent streams and then you start merging them for resilience if you want. Okay. So the post is a better method. You can, while sending, instead of a get request, you send post, you can send a payload. So this is typically what happens when you are submitting forms or anything. Okay. So get, somebody can view in between because it's not encrypted, but post, the payload can be encrypted in HTTPS. So that's one good thing. Okay. So for security reason, post is mostly used. So normally there will be this host will be having a timer. It will send a post request. So it will send whatever it want to communicate to the node. There is going to be a response timer, again another request response. So there is a request response, and connection, only TCP connection on which HTTP goes can be persistent, but there is always a pair of communication which happens. It's not a continuous stream you cannot pump in. So for media, this is a problem. But this is the way usually earlier the Skype used to work. But later on in the specs, we also got something called HTTP connect. So H will create HTTP connect connection to S. So there is a byte stream which can be sent and byte stream can be received, and it can happen continuously. There is nothing like request and response. So these are byte pipes created in both the directions. So WebRTC actually uses this HTTP connect. So Jitsi, which we are using now, using WebRTC. In fact, all three must be using WebRTC, and they are actually using HTTP connect. They are actually going through browser. So browser is not using UDP transmission, while Skype is using UDP transmission as of now. Okay, we can actually look into the stats and check. So HTTP connect is what is going to be used for streaming media. And one node who is on the public, having public IP address, who is on the internet, can act as your proxy. It need not be a special server. So I think one of the nodes who are part of the P2P network can become your proxy. So we call it a proxy node actually. And the way it is done is any nodes which can potentially become proxy nodes, they form their own DHT layer. So if you're behind a net or firewall, you at least find out one proxy route which is going to be your bootstrapping node server actually. So because in any peer-to-peer system, initially some node has to be there with which the people will get initiated into the whole network. So that bootstrapping node normally will also be can act as a proxy node. So you'll get a proxy node, and from there you can get to know of all other proxy node. And if you also want to become a proxy node, you will join that particular DHT and will act as proxy for others. Okay, that's typically, companies will normally deploy their many proxy nodes. Sometimes people would not like to become proxy node on their own. Okay, they may turn on their firewall. Okay, for safety reasons, some people do that, but a lot of volunteers do run their nodes as a proxy nodes. Okay, so traffic can get routed through them. So this is the proxy nodes is what is being going to be these nodes, and the nodes which are inside firewall will be able to communicate. So for all practical purposes, the IP address and port number for this particular node will be the public IP address and port number of this node which is on the internet. Okay, so this is was all about NATs, firewalls, and HTTP proxy. And when you implement, you always do first of all the UDP full cone. If it does not work out, you do UDP restricted cone. If nothing, and then you try TCP. If TCP also does not work out, you try with HTTP tunneling and basically using for HTTP proxying for your communication. So this capability has to be built in the client. So one after another, in an order, they have to be executed, and then connectivity has to be figured out. There was a one interesting problem actually which we had worked on, that if, for example, there are too many peer-to-peer clients inside IITK. Okay, when you look at outside, they will all see the same IP address when communicating to outside. Same public IP address from the net might be there, or maybe that from their that small pool they will be picking up. So these people who are inside can form their own peer-to-peer network with private IP, and I think few of them can connect to outside. forming an interconnection of these two networks actually together. Okay, so that requires some engineering. So maybe some of you can think about it, how this can be done. There was a thesis which was done on something similar. So maybe you can even search on the library website for this particular thing. So with that, I think I will close the today's introduction session. If you have any questions, so I will go one by one to everybody who is participating and actually can ask. Okay, so first of all, people who are on Hangout. So any questions from the people who are on Hangout? They can unmute their microphone and talk. And if you don't have question now, you can always put it on the Telegram, and then I can discuss it in the next interaction. Okay. So anybody who's on a Jitsi client? Nobody. Okay. So let's move to WebEx if somebody is there. Okay, there is nobody on the WebEx. Let's look at who is there on Skype. No, Skype, I think the call has ended. So there is nobody there now. Okay. So I think there are no questions. So thank you very much. And we probably what I will do is